Good morning, friends. Today, let us see the next concept in the ecology and environment. It is the Ramsar Convention on Wetland. What is a wetland? Initially, the people called the very wetland as swampy regions. Initially, the people called this very wetland as swampy regions, where the people never considered them as important ecological regions. Even they considered these regions as the nasty places, the places of unhygienic, where they are the breeding grounds of the mosquitoes, and the people treated these very lands as wastelands. They call them as wastelands, and they want to fill up the lands so that the land can be utilized for agriculture or some other purposes. But it is the environmentalist where they brought very great awareness among the people, saying that they are not the noxious places. In fact, they are the very great attraction for migratory birds. The attraction for migratory birds, not only they act as attractive places for the migratory birds, even these places are of ecological importance, where there can be very great ecological productivity. Like you might be knowing the ecological productivity, like gross productivity, net productivity. These are all the places where they are of very high ecological productivities. Since the ecologist has brought very great awareness among the people, saying that these are not the wastelands nor the noxious places, because of the best efforts made by the environmentalists, now the very swamplands or marshy lands are now treated as wetlands. A new name is being given for the same areas of marshy land or the swampy land. Wetland is a positive term. This is the introduction of a wetland. Now let us see the definition of wetland. What is a wetland according to the convention? The wetland is defined as the land saturated with water. It is either open or closed. What do you mean by open or closed? Means what? Whether it is a coastal land, suppose if this is the country, if the wetland is present here, which is called as open wetland, if it is present quite inside the land like this, is called as the closed wetland. Whether it can be open or closed, or it can be seasonal or permanent. Means what? The wetland can be even seasonal. It may be having water during particular season, or it can be permanent. Means what? Perennial in nature. Or it can be natural, otherwise called as man-made. Means what? A wetland can be either open or closed. Number one, it can be open or closed. It can be seasonal or permanent. It can be natural and man-made. Fourth criteria is either it can be fresh water or saline water, or maybe the brackish water. These are the three very important waters you can find. It can be fresh water, it can be saline water, it can be brackish water. Let us see what you mean by fresh water, saline water, and the brackish water. As the name denotes, fresh water is nothing but those waters which are conducive for drinking purposes. This is called as the fresh water. Where do you find the fresh water? Fresh water basically is found here in the rivers. Then what do you mean by the saline water? The saline water is nothing but the water with huge content of dissolved salts. Where do you find this one? This is basically found in the oceans. Then comes the third one called as brackish water. What do you mean by brackish? The name, the spelling is Brackish, brackish waters. What do you mean by the brackish waters? Brackish waters, here it is being given here as brackish water. What do you mean by brackish water? Now let us understand like this. This is the fresh water, this is saline water. Now suppose if this is the land, if this is the ocean, if this is the ocean, now the river is flowing like this. River is considered as the fresh water. Now the water flows here like this and it will be draining into sea or ocean. This is completely the fresh water, this is completely the saline water. This area where the river is draining into the sea or ocean, this water is neither as fresh as the waters of the river nor as saline as the waters of the ocean or sea. This is the area where you can find the transition of water. Since the fresh water is mixing into the saline water, there you can find the transition. Such a waters here, they are called as brackish waters. These are called as brackish waters. This itself can be a wetland. This can be a wetland. This can be a wetland. Maybe a part of a sea is also a wetland, like the best example, Gulf of Mannar. This is what the definition that is been given, where the criteria like it can be either open or closed, seasonal or permanent, natural or man-made, fresh water, saline water, brackish water. Also it can include the swamp regions. It can be the peatland, it can be marshy land, or it can be even bog. And the last one, it includes the areas of marine water, the depth of which at the low tides does not exceed 6 meters of height. This is a very important point here in the definition. The first one is a wetland is nothing but the water submerged region. It can be open or closed, seasonal or permanent, natural or man-made, or the fresh water or the brackish water or saline water, it is earned, and such areas where you can find the low tide should not exceed 6 meters. This is what the condition for such a water body. The definition for such water bodies are called as the wetlands. Now let us see this one. A wetland is a land that is saturated with water either permanently or seasonally, such that it takes the characteristics of the distinct ecosystem. So Ramsar covers means what? The Ramsar, the convention, it can covers the different types of wetlands, like it may be natural or human made wetlands. It can be the inland and the fresh water. It can be marshy, river, lake, or even reservoir. It can be coastal or the marine. It can be lagoon. It can be estuary. It can be mangrove. It can be coral reef. It can be even the seagrass beds. All. Even it can be underground region like the karst caves. This is what the wetland according to Ramsar. What is this Ramsar Convention? The Ramsar Convention is nothing but the conservation. It's a conservation program where normally, see, this is a very important point. Normally, all the conventions what do you mean by convention? Convention is nothing but the agreement. It's a agreement by the member countries. Means what? All the world countries meet at one particular region and they'll be discussing about one specific aspect and they will be acting together. Such a agreement is called as the convention, where this particular agreement, nothing but this particular convention is regarding the protection of wetland. Where it has taken place, It has taken place at a city called as Ramsar in the country called as Iran. Therefore, this is called as Ramsar Convention. It's called as the Intergovernmental Treaty. It's called as Intergovernmental. The words are very, very important. Let us see here what you mean by intergovernmental. Means what? All the world governments, all the world countries which are being ruled by the respective governments, they'll be coming and participating in the agreement, nothing but in the convention. It's a intergovernmental convention brought on 2nd February 1971. 2nd February 1971. This is the agreement where on 2nd February 1971 it has taken place at the Ramsar city in the Iran. Right from then, this 2nd February is known as World Wetland Day. What is the current related development regarding this one? On 2nd February 2019, a new Indian Ramsar site was being included in the list of world Ramsar sites. What is that name of the Ramsar site? It is the Sundarbans of West Bengal. Sundarbans of Bangladesh was was there in the Ramsar list right from the beginning, but the Sundarbans of West Bengal was added only in the year 2019 on February 2nd. Also, in the year 2020, altogether 10 new Ramsar sites from India were included in the Ramsar, making the list to a total of 37. Earlier there were just 26. With the Sundarbans it became 27. Now with the adding of 10 more, now the list of Indian wetlands in the Ramsar Convention, they are 37. This is a very important one. What is the important development? 10 new sites were being included in the year 2020 in the month of January 2020, whereas on 2nd February 2019, one Indian site was included. This is called as the Sundarbans. What are those sites and all these things we will be seeing in the next clipping. We can see all the 37. We will be discussing all the 37 Ramsar sites of India, where they are located, what is the importance of this one. Sometimes the question can be directly asked on those things. So you need to pay very great attention regarding all the 37 Ramsar sites of India. Now, let us see the three pillars. Before going to see the three pillars, means what? On what pillars, on what principles the Ramsar Convention is working on. This is what the three pillars of the Ramsar Convention. Now, before going to see this one, let me add one more very important point here. Normally, all the conventions are under the aegis of United Nations. Like the best example, the Convention on Biodiversity, like the Convention on Climate Change, like UNFCCC, even the Convention on Desertification, where it is called as United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification. See, these are all the conventions where they are under the aegis of United Nations. Not only this one, whatever the convention, you name a convention, that convention is basically under the aegis of United Nations. But the only convention which is not under the umbrella of United Nations is Ramsar. This is a very, very important point where you need to remember this one. The only convention which is not under the aegis of United Nations is Ramsar Convention, but this very Ramsar Convention is working in association with all the United Nations agencies and all the NGOs that are present in the world countries. See, this is what it is working in tandem with the agencies and also it is working with a number of NGOs. But the thing is, it is not covered under the United Nations. This is what the very important point where you need to remember. Now, after having discussed about how the convention came into picture, was the definition, then what is the importance of the Ramsar, all these things, let us see on what sound principles the Ramsar Convention is working. In fact, the Ramsar Convention is having its strategic plan where it is based on three pillars. What are the three pillars? The first one is called as the wise use of wetland. What do you mean by the wise use of wetland? What is this wise use? Nothing but utilizing the wetland in a sustainable manner. There should not be any degradation of the health of the environment in that locality. This is what called as the wise use of the wetland. Working towards the wise use of the wetland, this is the first pillar. The second pillar is further identification, designation, and management of comprehensive suites of sites for the list of wetland international importance. What that it means? It means designating any wetland as a international site under Ramsar Convention. Based upon this can be done based upon certain criterias. We will be seeing what are the different criterias. It is based on certain criterias how a wetland can be enlisted in the international convention. What are the criterias? There are altogether 9 such criterias are followed. Based upon this one, any water body which satisfies the minimum criterias, they can be enlisted in the Ramsar Convention. This is the second pillar. The third pillar is cooperating internationally in the delivery of wetland conservation. This is a very very important pillar. What it talks about? It talks basically about protection. It talks basically about the protection. Not only the protection of the water bodies that are present within the country, also protection and conservation of those water bodies which are translocated or transboundary wetlands. Transboundary wetlands. What do you mean by transboundary wetlands? Those water bodies which can share or which are sharing 2 or 3 countries. The best example. Let us see the example of Victoria Lake. Victoria Lake of Africa, where it is called as a transboundary lake. What is this transboundary lake? Where it is having its presence in 3 countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. Also, when you talk about the transboundary lake in India, there is a lake called as Changu Lake. In Sikkim, there is a lake called as Changu. This is basically called as Changu Lake, but in the Sikkim language is written as Tsangu, Sangu Lake. It is written like this, or this is the original name, Changu Lake, where it is having a boundary with China on one side, another side India. Also, you can find some of the other transboundary lakes that are present in India, like in the Jammu and Kashmir, in the Sikkim. These are the very important areas where you can find such water bodies. Such water bodies needs to be protected with a not just not just by one country. It has to have international cooperation. Therefore, the international cooperation is very much required. Because of this one, the Ramsar Convention became very important. This is about the 3 pillars of the Ramsar Convention. What are the objectives of the Ramsar Convention? The first one is called as the conservation and sustainable utilization of the wetlands. The second one is called as to stop the encroachment and loss of the wetland. There are the 2 basic objectives that are present here for the Ramsar Convention? See the organization structure of this Ramsar Convention. In fact, it is closely associated with six organizations. These are the some of the one are NGOs, and some of the other things are under the United Nations. They are working in close association with the Ramsar Convention. The first one is called as the Birdlife International. Birdlife International is a very important organization where it maintains the census of the bird species all over the world. Not only this one, it is the one which is talking more about the migration of the birds from where to where the migration is happening. All these things has been maintained by this Birdlife International. Also, the very important organization which is the NGOs called as International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN. The third one is called as International Water Management Institution. Then the other organization is called as Wetland International. The organization which was talking about the wetlands earlier to Ramsar Convention is this one, the Wetlands International. The next one is called as WWF, World Wildlife Fund International. The next one is called as Wildfowl and Wetland Trust. These are the very important six organizations where the Ramsar Convention or the Ramsar is in close working in close association. Apart from this one, there are certain other organizations where they are working in tandem with the Ramsar Convention. One I said already is called as the Convention on Biodiversity, which is under the United Nations. The another one is called as the Convention to Combat Desertification. Then the very important one called as the Convention on Migratory Species. This very convention, the Convention on Migratory Species, COP, Conference of Parties 13, held in India at a place called as Gandhinagar in February 2020. Again, this is very important. Held here in the 2020. This is Gandhinagar of Gujarat. It held in 2020, very recently, before the outbreak of this coronavirus. Then the last one is called as the World Heritage Convention. What is World Heritage Convention? Again, it's very important. The World Heritage Convention, where it's not under the UNESCO's program. Normally, you will be confusing with the moment when you come across the heritage, you will be getting confused with the World Heritage sites. But there is another one called as the World Heritage Convention. And these are the other very important parties where they are associated with the Ramsar Convention. Let us see the funding mechanism. How the funding is been coming for the Ramsar. The funding projects. The first one, very important one, is called as GEF. What is this GEF? The Global Environmental Funds. Then multilateral development banks are there. UNEP and United Nations Environment Program. Then United Nations Developmental Program. Then the very important organization where it's called as UNESCO. And also you can find the other organization called as UNCEF. ECE. What is this UNCE? ECE. Normally you never will be coming across this one. This is called as UNECE. It's called as Economic Commission for Europe. It is exclusively for the Europe. And the next one is called as the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. These are all the funding mechanisms where the Ramsar Convention is getting the funds from. Then the key feature of Ramsar Convention, it recognizes the wetland. Not only it recognizes the wetland, it values the wetland for the human well-being. The type of values where they are called as ecosystem services. They are called as ecosystem services. The ecosystem services like provisioning services. What it will be providing? It will be providing food. When you are talking about the wetland, food means what? Definitely you will be talking about the seafood. See, this is a vital for the human well-being, food and water security. And also a very important one is these wetlands are the one where they are meant for the alleviation of the poverty in that local areas. This is a very important point. The question in the UPSC preliminary point, the question can be asked like this. The Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, one of the very important objective is the alleviation of the poverty. The moment when you see the wetland conservation and poverty, we feel like there is no connectivity. But one of the very important key aspect in the Ramsar Convention is elevation of the poverty in the local community. This is a very important point here where you need to pay very great attention on this one. The next one is it supports the practical wetland sustainability. The sustainability is very much required. If suppose the sustainability is not maintained, then what Ramsar Convention will be doing? If any area or for that matter any country is not maintaining the health of the wetland, then how the Ramsar Convention can tame that country? There is a mechanism in the Ramsar Convention where we will be coming across that mechanism also in the short while, where it's called as Montrex record. It's called as Montrex, 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 Montreux. It's called as the Montrex record. Will be coming in short, this one, the Montrex record. It will be maintaining a record called as the Montrex record. It will be having an eye on those international wetlands where the degradation in the ecosystem is happening here. In fact, this is the only one such convention which is specifically to one ecosystem. No other convention is specifically for one convention. This is the only such convention where it is talking about one ecosystem. Is the water ecosystem, the wetland ecosystem. The next one is called as the it acts for the flexible mechanism in collaboration, and it's very much open for all the inputs for both the local as well as the international ideologies, where both ecosystems and species both can be protected, and they can be used in a sustainable manner. This is the again very important key feature for the Ramsar Convention. The last one, it provides the practical guidance for many topics. Means what? It is related to education and research. This is about the key features of the Ramsar Convention. Let us see the importance of wetlands. What are the importance of wetlands? Why we need to protect the wetland? Is the protection of wetland is so important or what? In what way it is helpful for the humankind? The first and foremost one, it recharges the groundwater. Suppose if this is the wetland, when the water is made to stagnate here, there can be seepage of the water in the inner layers, and you can find the ground reserves, aquifers, that can be recharged. This is a very important one where you can find the recharge of the ground level water in the form of aquifers can be recharged. This is the groundwater. Also, it can be acting as a storage for fresh water over surface. This is the groundwater. Another one is called as the surface water. The next one is it is useful for economic and domestic purpose. When the water is available, definitely it can be used for both the economic purposes and the domestic purposes. Then the third one is called as the sustainable use of fresh water. The fourth one is called as the maximum utilization of groundwater conservation. The next one, the betterment of the future. Wetland creates sustainable products and livelihoods. The last one, the recent estimates show that the 64% or more of the world's wetland have disappeared since 1990. There is a report called as IPBES. IPBES stands for intergovernmental science policy platform for biodiversity and ecosystem services. This science policy platform has given a report called as the Global Assessment Report in the year 2019. It says that almost all the extinction of the species, how much of extinction is there? 1 million of million species are about to extinct. This is because of non-availability of the qualitative water. This is the one which is related to this one. See here, 64% or more wetlands have got disappeared since 1990. Since 1990 means what? Whenever you are talking about the wetlands, the water bodies where they are getting disappeared very quickly due to many factors. The moment when the water body get disappears, what happens to the marine life? The marine life again will be in a great disaster. Therefore, IPBS talks about there are certain million of species where they are going to get extinct in the near future. You please follow this report. It's called as GAR. It's called as Global Assessment Report, which is released very recently in the year 2019. And again, question can be asked from this GAR report. What are the other importance of the wetlands? Let us see the other importance of the wetlands. The wetlands acts as the source of ecotourism. The source of ecotourism. Also, it can be a very great source for aquaculture, where you can go for the growing of the fishes, prawns, shrimps, and all these things, aquaculture. Then these very wetlands can act as the recycling agents. Recycling of waste material. How a water body can act as a recycling of the waste material? In fact, they are also sometimes by the environmentalist, they are called as they are the kidneys of the earth. The wetlands are considered to be the kidneys of the earth. Just like the tropical rainforest is considered as the lungs of the mother earth, on the same lines, you can the environmentalist has given the status of the wetlands as the kidneys of the mother earth. This because these wetlands are the one which are very greatly recycling the waste material. They intake the carbon dioxide, they reprocessed, and they send back the very pure oxygen into the atmosphere. Suppose if this is a wetland, here you can find the marine life, maybe kelp, the kelp forest, KELP, the kelp forest. This very wetland with the kelp forest, where it can squeeze more and more carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide is quickly converted into oxygen. Again, it can be sent back into the environment. Therefore, the recycling of the waste, what is waste for us, may be the very important source for the other organisms or other species, like maybe the plants, where the recycling of the elements can be taken place. Also, the wetlands, especially the coastal regions, where you can find the mangroves and all these areas, they act as a speed breakers for cyclones, a very great fury of cyclonic winds. Not only cyclones, even they act as a speed breakers for tsunami waters. Speed breakers for tsunami means what? The very classical example is of the coast of Tamil Nadu. See, if this is Tamil Nadu, here there is a city called as Nagapattinam. Just to the south of Nagapattinam, you can find the mangroves called as Pitchavaram mangroves. Pitchavaram. The name of the mangroves are called as Pitchavaram mangroves, which are present here in the Tamil Nadu. Nagapatnam got devastated and there were many casualties because of tsunami water, but the mangrove that is present here has protected the villages that are present behind the mangroves. There was not even a single casualty in those localities which are behind the Pichavaram mangroves. This is the importance of the water body where these wetlands can act as a speed breakers. Also, again, the same thing. Again, the word can be called as they are acting as a carbon sequestration agents. They act as a carbon sequestration agents. See, these are the very important importance of the wetlands. Last but not the least, a very important one is the wetlands acts as religious significance. They act as religious significance. They act as cultural significance. That is the reason why we call them the rivers like Ganga as Ganga Ma, means what? Ganga Maya. Why we consider the river Ganga? River is a river wherever it can be, but we never, the other people in other country never treat river as Mataji. But whereas here in India we treat the rivers as God. That is what called as the religious significance, the cultural significance, tradition. The tradition of India is to treat the water body as a very great significance for the religious, cultural, and the traditional purposes. I'll give you a best example. There is a water body called as Kanjli water body or Kanjli in Punjab. Kanjli wetland. There is a wetland called as Kanjli wetland. Here it is believed that the great personality of the Sikh community means what? The Sikh Guruji by name Mr. Guru Nanak got enlightenment on the banks of this Kanjli wetland. Therefore, this Kanjli wetland is having a very great religious significance. The people feel this region as a very sacred region, very pious region. This is about the importance of the wetlands. Such a very important importance that is given to the wetlands was being degraded by the human activity again. These wetlands, which are highly important but not paid much attention, where the people are not taking proper care of this wetland, due to this one, you can find a very great threat to the wetlands. What type of threats you can find for the wetlands? The first and foremost threat here is the wetlands are degraded due to increased agricultural grazing activity. Because of increased agricultural activity due to ever growing population, every person needs to have good and high healthy food services. Therefore, agriculture becomes the prime motive for the people. Therefore, for this one, the water needs to be diverted through dams. Whenever there is a river, the dam is constructed and the water is made to stagnate here. And now from here, different routes, maybe the canals have been constructed and the water has been diverted here like this. The moment when the water gets diverted here, what happens to the natural flow of the river here? Here, the availability of the water becomes less. Therefore, the marine life that is present here is at stake. This is one of the very important factor where the man is giving priority for the agriculture and some other activities at the cost of marine life. This is a very important threat for the wetlands. The next one is called as, see here, the agriculture which is included in the canalization are nothing but for construction of the canals, infrastructure development, where the river valley projects are being constructed and the coastal areas are being destroyed due to the human activities. These are all different threats. Also, you can find some of the other threats Like the next very important threat here is eutrophication. Eutrophication. What is this eutrophication? Eutrophication, because of using of excess of chemical fertilizers in the agricultural field, whenever the unused or the residual chemicals happens to, suppose if this is the agricultural field where the crops are being grown here, now for the great productivity chemicals are being administered here. Now after the harvesting, some of the chemicals will be remain as residual material on the soil. Now whenever there is a rainfall, now what happens, the rainwater mixes up with the chemicals and drains into the nearby water body. If suppose if this is the water body, then when the chemicals, nothing but the nutrients like NPK, these are the very three important nutrients for the growth of the plant: nitrogen, phosphorus and the potash. When these nutrients ends up in the nearby water body, maybe a lake, pond or maybe a tank, as these nutrients are very light in density, they will be floating over the water body. When there is a chance of having a weed, nothing but a seed, if a seed is falling in this one, as these are nutrients, the seed grows because of available the water is there, then the nutrients are present, you can find the unwanted growth of biomass. The unwanted growth of biomass takes place. Due to this growth of biomass, what happens, this marine species that are present here within the water body, they require more and more oxygen, which is called as dissolved oxygen, called as BOD, biological oxygen demand for the oxygen increases here. At the same time, because of growth of biomass, there is a cutting down of exchange of materials from the atmosphere into the water body and from the water body into the atmosphere, due to which the nutrients for the marine life will be stopped off and leads to perish leads me to perishment of the marine species that are present here. This is called as eutrophication. This eutrophication is basically found in those areas where the agriculture is agriculture is depending more on chemical fertilizers, nothing but the green revolution areas. This is a very important phenomena where it will be degrading the wetland. The next one is called as the siltation. Again, very major problem here for the wetlands is the siltation. What is the siltation? The deposition of the sediments in the water body. The moment whenever the river is bringing more and more sediments and the river water is being stored here in this wetland, the wetland loses its capacity where all the sediments get stored in the wetland. Therefore, the capacity of the volume to hold more and more water get reduced. This is called as siltation. Also, you can find the very best example for the degradation or threat of the wetland is a very popular one, which is called as the climate change. Due to the change in the climate, especially where the phenomena like El Nino, then due to the phenomena like melting of the glaciers, this melting of the glaciers due to heavy rainfall in the Himalayan regions, where they can bring certain warmth to the glaciers, therefore the glaciers will be melting very quickly. Also because of the warming up of the oceans, like especially the southern Pacific Ocean, where you can find the phenomena like El Nino takes place. When such a event takes place, the water bodies that are present along the coastal areas or maybe even the inland region, they get adversely affected. This is about the threats that are related to the wetlands. Coming to Montrex record. What do you mean by the Montrex record? Montrex record is a register of listed Ramsar sites where changes in the ecological character have occurred or or occurring or likely to occur. Means what? Past tense, present, and even the future. What do you mean by past, present, and the future? Means what? Let us understand like this. When a wetland which is enlisted in the Ramsar site, in such a wetland, if the ecological characters are getting changed, means what? Have occurred, means what? In the past already they have occurred, the ecological characters got already changed, or occurring, means what? At present the ecological changes are happening, or likely to occur in the future. Likely to occur means what? There are certain signs where the ecological characters are getting changed. When such a changes that takes place in the ecological character of the wetland, then such a wetland will be placed under the register called as the Montrex record. This is the record. This is the record where a list of threatened wetland sites were enlisted. What happens when such a wetland is enlisted in the Montrex record? When any one wetland is enlisted in the Montrex record, means what? That particular convention means what? The Ramsar Convention is telling to that respective country. Suppose if this is a country called as A, in this country there is one wetland where the ecological changes are already happened. Therefore, by seeing the ecological changes where the degradation of the ecology of that particular region happened, therefore in the Montrex record, this very specific wetland has been enlisted. The moment when it is enlisted, it is a slap on the government of this country. Means what? This country has not taken proper care of this wetland. Because of that one, when specifically this record is telling that you country, you are not giving importance to this ecological character of this wetland, you are responsible for the degradation of the health of the marine species, then this very country will act positively and gives special attention to this one so that the marine species can be protected there. This is how the Montrex record is acting as a check and balance on the countries. This is a very very important register called as Montrex record. As on today, there are two wetlands of India enlisted in the Montrex record. What are the two wetlands? One in the state of Rajasthan, this is called as the Kiladio National Park wetland. The next one is in the state of Manipur, this is called as the Cable Lamzo LAMJAO, the Cable Lamzo wetland. These are the two very important wetlands where as on today, where they are still now in the Montrex record. These two are one from Rajasthan and the from Manipur. You need to pay attention on these two wetlands, right? This is about the Montrex record. Now, let us move to the criteria to be followed in the announcement of any water body as the international importance under Ramsar Convention. What are the criteria? In fact, there are 9 criteria to be followed. 9 criteria to be followed if any water body, if it satisfies some of the criteria. It's not like all the 9 criteria needs to be satisfied. If two or more criteria got satisfied, then such a water body can be given the international importance under the Ramsar Convention. What are those criteria? Let us see the criteria. The first and foremost criteria: the wetland should be considered internationally important if contains a representative, rare or unique example of natural or near natural wetland. See the importance here. The terms which are very important here, which are called as key terms, is called as natural or near natural wetland type. Means what? It says that the Ramsar Convention specifically says that the wetland should not be purely natural. Sometimes it can be man-made also. What do you mean by near natural? It can be man-made. How it can be man-made? Suppose if this is the river, if you construct a barrage here, the moment when you construct the barrage, the water gets stagnant here and it forms a reservoir. This reservoir can also be a very important wetland of international importance because it houses many migratory species. It houses many migratory species. The best example, there is a dam called as Pong Dam in Himachal Pradesh, which was constructed across the river called as the Bias River. This is the best example for the artificial or man-made wetland. This is the first criteria. Moving to the second criteria, the wetland should be considered international importance if it supports vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered species. Vulnerable species, endangered species, or critically endangered species. According to IUCN, there are different lists where the species can be enlisted under vulnerable, endangered, and the critical endangered. If any such species which is under the criteria of IUCN, if these bird species or the other species, maybe plants or animals, if they are present here in this one, such a water body can be given the international importance. This is what they're called as the threatened ecological communities. If any threatened species, means what, ecologically threatened species is present in such a water body, that water body needs to be protected. This is the second criteria. The third criteria, let us see the third criteria. The third criteria is if it supports a population of plants or animal species important for maintaining biological diversity of a particular biogeographic region. Means what? Whenever you are talking about biological diversity, it can be genetic diversity, it can be species diversity, or it can be even ecological diversity, ecosystem diversity. If any such diversity is being protected by the wetland, then that particular wetland can be enlisted as internationally important. Then the fourth criteria is if it supports plant or animal species at a critical stage. This is again very important criteria. At the critical stage in its life cycle, or it provides refuge during adverse conditions. Means what? Any water body which is facilitating necessary condition for the survivability of any species which is in the critical stage, then such a water body needs to be considered as international importance. These are all the 4 criteria. Let us see the fifth criteria. The fifth criteria is specifically mentioning the number of species, especially the water birds. So here the specially considered internationally important if regularly it supports 20,000 or more water birds. This is again one criteria. How many water birds needs to be present here if it supports more than 20,000 water birds. Then such a water body can be considered as the international importance. Then the second one, the next one, which is called as the sixth criteria, if it regularly supports 1% of the individuals in a population of one species or subspecies of the water birds. Means what? The 1% of the population in one specific species or maybe the subspecies of the water birds, whether it may be 20,000 or it is 1% simply. This is another criteria. Then the seventh criteria, if it supports a significant portion of indigenous fish. See, these are the two criteria which are talking about birds. From here, the criteria talks about the fishes. A wetland should be considered as internationally important if it supports a significant proportion of indigenous species, indigenous fish, subspecies, species or families, life history stage, species interaction or population that is representative of the wetland. This is the another criteria. Then the eighth criteria is the wetland should be considered internationally important if an important source of food for the fishes. Spawning ground are nothing but the breeding ground, the nurseries or the migration path which the fish stock either in the wetland or elsewhere is depends. The last criteria, it should be considered as internationally important if it regularly support 1% of the individual species of one species or population of one species or subspecies of wetland dependent or non-avian animal. Non-avian means what? They are not non-avian. Avian means what? The birds. Depending upon non-avian species. These are all the basic 9 criteria that are followed in announcing a water body as international wetland. Based upon all these criteria, as on today, India is having 37 such internationally important wetlands.